Since the beginning of time, hobbyists have been considering the PSA 10 to yield the best return on their investment in the sports card market. To what extent should a PSA 10 be valued over a PSA 9? What about an SGC 10 or SGC 9? What about a BGS 9.5 or BGS 9? So in this video, I share with you my research and insight around when it makes sense to invest in 2, 3, 4 PSA 9, SGC 10s, BGS 9s over one singular PSA 10? Or does it always make sense to invest in one singular PSA 10? Let's dig in. Most collectors and investors love slabs. They are an unavoidable part of the hobby, but a lot of us are wondering whether or not we should be investing in raw cards, whether we should be investing in SGC 9 or 10, maybe BGS 9 or 9.5. What about SGC 9.5? And what about PSA 9s and 10s and those PSA 8s, even HGA 9s and 10s? So as we dig into the numbers on which I feel is the best grade set to target when looking at auctions and buy it nows, go ahead and hit that subscribe button and that little bell notification icon if you like this style of content, and smash that like button for us and share with a friend who is passionate about football cards and fantasy football. All right, guys, so let's look at some numbers to get a better understanding of what is going on here. PSA is the premier grading company. Many collectors don't even buy other grading companies. But as you know, PSA does not have half grades on cards. So as a PSA reference, that means you're most likely looking at a 9 or 10 on modern cards. After all, PSA 8s, we have seen time and time again. We look at the values of Derrick Henry's 2016 Prism between a raw at around $65 right now, a PSA 8 at $50. A Justin Herbert Optic Holo from 2020, around $225 right now. His PSA 8, $135. We look at Joe Burrow's Optic Holo raw card right now, around $245, $250, and his PSA 8 at $175. So, moral of the story, if you can find a PSA 8, this is one pro tip I can give you right here. If you can find a PSA 8 that is selling for considerably lower, like in the Justin Herbert case, because it's been abandoned like a stray cat, then you can pick up that PSA 8. Just be prepared to crack it out of the case. Do not attempt to resell it in the PSA 8 case. It's not going to bode well for you. You're not going to yield very much profit, if any at all, when that player breaks out. But if you crack it out of its case and now sell it in a raw format, there's not a big noticeable difference between a PSA 10, 9, and 8. They're very minuscule differences. So now that we've discerned what we should do with PSA 8s, let's look at what Joe Burrow's graded cards were selling for back in November, December, compared to what they're selling for now in each grade. Look at the return on investment and look at which one would yield us the highest return on investment. I've got some interesting insights. I think there are some serious opportunities, market inefficiencies that eventually will be closed, will no longer be available to us. Going back to November, December, Joe Burrow's raw was about $110 on average. Now his raw is close to $245 on average. His SGC 9 November, December was about $75, lower than the raw. Now that SGC 9 is about $200. Back in November, December, his SGC 9.5 was selling for around $125. Now that card is going for auction by it nows for an average of $280. November, December, his SGC 10 was going for around $300 on eBay. Now, towards the end of January, here in February, that card is going for around $550. His BGS 9 Optic Holo November, December was selling for around $140. Now that is a $250 average sale price. November, December, his BGS 9.5 was selling for around $280 on average. Now, fast forward to today, the BGS 9.5 is selling for an average of $750. November, December is PSA 9 optic holo was selling for around $190. And so in comparison to an SGC 9, that's over double. In comparison to a BGS 9, that's $50 more. The PSA 9, $190 back then. Now the PSA 9 has doubled to $380. The PSA 10 in November, December was selling for an average of $525. The biggest of all of the standard grades that you can find on eBay. The SGC 10 Pristines, gold labels, the BGS 10 Pristines are very, very hard to find. In fact, I could not find any. Today, those PSA 10s have jumped from $525 to an average of $1,200 in auction and buy it nows here at the end of January, February. Let's look at the percentage increases across all these cards. The percent increase from November, December till now for Joe Burrow's optic holo raw, 223%. SGC 9, 267% increase. SGC 9.5, 224% increase. SGC 10, only 183% increase. A BGS 9, only 179% increase. However, a BGS 9.5, a 268% increase. A PSA 9, a clear double up, a 200% increase. A PSA 10, a 229% increase. So if the profit from selling one PSA 10 is $675, you would need to sell 5 raw cards, buy them low, sell them high to equal the same profit as one PSA 10. You would need to sell 5.4 SGC 9s, which I rounded up to 6, to equal the same amount of profit, a little bit more than one PSA 10. You would need to sell approximately 4.35, which I rounded down to 4 SGC 9.5s to equal the same profit as a PSA 10. You would need to sell approximately 3 SGC 10s to equal the same profit, $675 from selling one PSA 10. You would need to sell at least 6 BGS 9 to make the same amount of profit from selling one PSA 10. However, you would only need to sell 1.44 BGS 9.5s, which I actually rounded up to 2, and you would earn more profit than selling one PSA 10. So from an opportunity cost standpoint, the BGS 9.5 is a really sweet spot. 3.55 PSA 9s, which I rounded up to 4 PSA 9s, would be required to net the same profit as a one PSA 10. And there's just no chance with a PSA 8. Crack it. If you can get a good deal on it below raw, crack it, turn it into a raw card, and then sell it raw. So what does this data tell me? And I look at the Justin Herbert values now, comparing a raw at $225 and SGC 9 selling for less than a raw routinely at an average of $155. Same thing with a PSA 8, $135, and HGA 9, $200. And SGC 9.5, now we're talking about more than a raw at $285, but SGC 10 around $500. Now compare an SGC 10 to a BGS 9.5, they're about neck and neck. Compare that to a PSA 10, however, a PSA 10 still has a clear edge over all of these cards. So I would say my takeaways that BGS 9s and SGC 9s are barely worth more than the raw cards in a lot of situations. So sometimes, maybe if you can find them lower, depending on the rarity of the card. This is what I'll tell you guys. The rarer the card is, the less that the grade really matters, right? Because if the gap difference between an SGC 9 and SGC or a PSA 9 and a PSA 10 is 3x, but there's only 25 of those cards in existence, then it's okay to invest in the PSA 9 because it's hard to get that card in the first place. And there really shouldn't be that big of a value difference. I think that gap will close in the future. However, the more common a card becomes, the more value is placed on the higher grade. And PSA 10 is still the value king in the hobby because it's more common. The BGS 10 black label and the SGC 10 gold label, that those still have a tremendous bang for your buck. You can see you're looking at a 230% increase whenever a player breaks out. However, I think that there is a really good sweet spot targeting 9.5s. I think the spot to take advantage is these subgrades on more common cards. Take advantage of low-hanging SGC 9.5s and BGS 9.5s because we've seen the return on those consistent. 225% on the SGC 9.5 and 268% on the BGS 9.5. And I think you can potentially find some of those as very low hanging fruit, getting lost in the shuffle of the PSA 9. I think the PSA 9 is definitely downgraded. You're looking at a 200% return. It's not a whole lot more than the BGS 9 or the SGC 9. I think the SGC 9 is tremendously respected, undervalued. I think in a lot of cases, the SGC 9 we're seeing go for like almost the same as a PSA 8, lower than raw values. I don't think that should be the case at all. I don't think an SGC 9 should be really lower than a raw card at all. And if that's the case, you could buy SGC 9s. I think that gap closes in the future. I think the BGS 9s could potentially yield some value, but if you can find an SGC 9.5 for lower than a BGS 9, buy the SGC 9.5 all day because you're looking at potentially yielding a 225% increase when that player breaks out. So I think that is a really smart move, is to value 9.5 SGCs over BGS 9s, but I would value SGC 9s and BGS 9s over PSA 9s just because of the amount of PSA 10s in the marketplace, especially on more common cards. I think that the divide in value may last forever. However, I think there's a good chance that it won't. There's several reasons for this. PSA increasing their submission fees, adding additional charges to the end of their transaction cycle because of declared value. I think that stepped on a lot of toes of others in the hobby. That is one reason. That another reason is that BGS and SGC have a reputation for grading more strictly. So it's like, you know, if you get an A on an easy test or an A on a difficult test, which one feels better? I mean, at some point, the A on a difficult test does feel better. So people should catch on to that. Also, I think the SGC slabs look nice. The plastic's thick. Same thing with HGA. BGS slabs look really nice with their gold and silver plated labels. I think those look really nice with the clear logo in the top corner. You know, so there is definitely eye appeal factor for those. So BGS 9.5's a really nice sweet spot if you can find those, significantly undervalued compared to 10s on the same card, comparable players. So I want to ask you guys your opinion again. You know, do you think PSA will remain king? What or is BGS, you know, an SGC, you know, gaining ground? My numbers, I see that they are gaining ground. There's more acceptance for those SGC 9.5s and BGS 9.5s in comparison to PSA 10s, especially SGC 10s in compared to BGS 9.5s. I really think that BGS 9.5 is becoming closer and closer to a PSA 10. So definitely look for that type of value in the marketplace. Hope you guys enjoyed this video. See you in that next one. Peace. Peace, 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 peace.